and it goes on in plain sight. And a lot of it is it's a sect of society that a lot of these women and the children that get in these positions to where they're used and abused and they're overlooked. They're just overlooked and they feel as if they're overlooked because once you're in a system and judged in that manner, there is a certain a stigma that'll go along with that.
Hi, Leah. Thank you for joining us. Yes, so as you know, this is the Warrior Network, and it's all about people sharing our stories and just helping to uplift humanity as a whole, because there's so much bad stuff going on in the world. And I think when you look at things like narcissism, it's not just happening in people's lives, it's across the board. And I think that people that are aware of it at a small scale are starting to see it on a larger scale, and more people are waking up to it. So I'm just glad that you're able to share and you're going to share your story with us. So I'm not going to interrupt. Tell us just a little bit about who you are and what your story is.
Well, I'm just a lady from Dayton, Ohio, and I lived out most of my life, kind of unaware of a lot. I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, apparently, that wasn't really aware of how much impact it had on me until in my 30s. I was a functioning addict, is a good way to put it. I drank a lot of alcohol from a young age and didn't even see it as a problem. But in my 30s, I had this terrible, horrendous car accident, and I ended up. I was actually I died, and when I came to, there was a lot of things that kind of were revealed to me in a way that, I mean, I guess I was just blissfully unaware of what it was, but a lot of corruption within my local municipality and government. I mean, a lot. Enough that it was, I mean, it had crippled my life somewhat. I had seen so many, injustices done to other people in my community, and I tried to advocate for them and myself. I mean, I had a lot of things happen just directly that were correct, like judges that were corrupt, and doing things on a scale where they were evicting people from property that they owned under an assumed alias, kind of thing. I mean, things that just should not be going on anywhere. I feel like something kind of put in my path for some reason. I'm not sure what that is, or if it's always there and I just didn't really notice that kind of thing. But just since I have woken up from that car accident, there's been a lot of people and things and just in my life that have shown me the worst of the world, and it hurts, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned there's a lot that you could share for people. Is there something that they could be aware of? Is it something that anybody can do?
Uh, no, you're right. The biggest thing that I had happen with me was there's a woman, and it's all with my local courts here, that there was direct involvement with people I know that, you could say, like if you're in society, some people will look at a group of people and judge them based on what they do and what their lifestyle is. Some of these people I've grown up with, and I see the person they are and who's inside, not what has helped give them undesirable behaviors or patterns in their life. And thrown to a system that there's a woman I know, for instance, that she had I guess you would call it sugar daddy, but he was a prosecutor for, a local jurisdiction, but she was a minor at the time. There's a lot of things like that that go on within our system that people don't see, but it's soliciting children for sex. It's sex trafficking. That is, and they consider where I'm from, Ohio, to be, it's like a trap state for it. It goes on in mass amounts here because of the transit system, how the highways are. But There's
Yeah.
people making money from this kind of thing. And it goes on in plain sight. And a lot of it is it's a sect of society that a lot of these women and the children that get in these positions to where they're used and abused and they're overlooked. They're just overlooked and they feel as if they're overlooked because once you're in a system and judged in that manner, there is a certain a stigma that'll go along with that, and
Mm.
it's a lot of it's undeserved. But I mean, that's not even just. I mean, that's just the part of it. There's the real estate. The judge here that was evicting people from a property he owned, but he owned it under an alias, but he did it in his very own courtroom, which is gross misconduct and conflict of interest. And the judge owned the property and was on it actively using a different name. The city allowed them to evict this woman. I don't see why he was not disbarred, other than the fact that he owned a title company, a long-standing family of real estate attorneys and political attorneys in the area. This just speaks to, I mean, how many people he had done things like that to.
Yeah.
It's things like that are just, it's gross injustice and it's happening widespread. Like you said, it's everywhere. And people get hurt. There's people that hurt other people because of the way they've been hurt and they don't know any other way. I'm currently dealing with something like that right now. Uh, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And understanding, I ask why, and I've never been real spiritually really big because of my dad. He's a big reason why I drank my whole life, but he's a preacher that liked to abuse women and sexually assault his own daughter. Uh, so I never really had a good concept of spirituality and love for myself or God or things of that nature. But after I had that experience where I passed, I do know that there's something divinely out there, and it's pushing me towards something. And I don't know what it is, but all I know there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain. I hurt a lot, and I hurt for myself, and I hurt for others, mostly, and end up getting hurt a lot by other people because I want to help them.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, we know this is not really a physical war, it's actually a spiritual war that's going on. And to me, it's like they are catching people unaware that aren't aware that there's a spiritual war going on. So they just keep feeding them the lies and the stories. And to me, it's allowed to perpetuate because they're not being put a stop to. It's like having weeds in your garden. If nobody's pulling them out, they're just going to keep growing. There's nothing to keep them in check. They've kind of infiltrated every system, as you said, the government, the institutions, the legal system. They are in everywhere, and there's nobody that can put a stop to it unless people stop listening and buying that and realizing that we have a choice. We don't have to follow that system that they have created for us to say you will abide by our rules and we get to do whatever we want. And I think this is a lot of where your trauma is coming from too, because your dad, being a preacher, is looked up to in the community, supposedly a man of God, and nobody questions it. And they'll go and put on that facade to the world to say, I'm this holy man, and nobody questions it. And if you dare speak up, they look at you and say, you're the problem. So we are being kept to be kept quiet the whole time.
yeah,
So
when
I
you're
think it's
older,
time to
well,
speak up. It's time to speak up. We
I,
need to stand up.
I agree. I agree. And there's a lot of that. Just what I see in my daily life and what I've seen, growing up, the things that I would mask and hide most were things that were very deeply, when you're a child, you have your environmental stressors that are either positive or negative, that they kind of determine which way you're going to head in your life. And there's not really a big connection with spirituality anymore, at least in the demographics that I know and what I was raised in. There was a separation of self
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, that your spiritual aspect, if you don't have it in the home, and it's a lot of broken families and broken homes, and there's not a big connection to your spiritual self there. There's really not. I
So
mean,
could it be that you are there to break that family of dysfunction, that you're there to stop that from continuing? Because to me, it's like we all born in this dysfunctional families because there's a lot of us, but we've been so disconnected from each other. Everybody that I've spoken to has come from a place where nobody else understood them. Their families think they're bonkers. You can't talk to them about it. They laugh at you, they ridicule you. And it's about saying we are there to stand up and say it's because of that environment that we grew up in that it's time to show the world and be authentic no matter what they say. And it's just to break that, because otherwise we're just going to continue being in this constant cycle of, to me, it's rebirth, rebirth into this 3D matrix, where we just living out, we just food for these people. That's what we are.
like the subconscious is pulling in the worst of things that
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
I
to
feel
heal
like
the
it's like
family.
I don't want that mostly. Things that I
Yeah.
wouldn't want the most, or had trepidation of, would come back, because injustice, I don't like it when people do not know their rights, or I see them being hurt, and it's
So
wrong.
that could be a thing, is letting people know what their rights are, because they get confounded. They get told one story and then they get given another. I mean, that judge should be held for, what do you call that? Perjury. You know,
It's gross misconduct. It's gross
it is,
misconduct
right?
and
So
conflict of
he should be
interest.
held accountable for that, but he won't be because he's the judge.
And he's a real estate attorney that owns a title agency in the area. So, and I know firsthand that they say real estate's a scratch back business. You scratch their back, they scratch yours. It's a very in my opinion, I feel like a lot of murder, fraud, and just convolution is what founded America in a lot of ways, when it comes
Yeah.
to our industries that are the most money making, and help build the foundations, which is real estate, securities and insurance, and import and export, which hosted a slaughterhouse basically of slavery, and we founded and made a lot of money on that. It's And the corruption that is most is exactly those same things right now. And
Well,
we, the
it doesn't
people, they
change.
say,
It doesn't
yeah,
change. It
they
just gets
say,
worse.
yeah, and they can say you're free all they want. You're free, but we're free to do what we're told,
Yeah.
unless we can really look. And right now we have that privilege to be able to look as a unified front and say, like you said, no more, no more of having to live in this. It's an illusion. What's put on for us and the limits that they have for us is an illusion. If you To be able to pierce through that and get to an integrated place of honest interaction with each other,
Yeah.
I feel like is key. And it's frustrating because waking up the way I have, coming from a Walking Dead, I was like a zombie. Then I see all these other things that are going on, and it's a lot. It's so much.
So, I always used to think if you become enlightened, then you become more peaceful. But actually, the more you see, the worse it looks. But I do believe that if you can heal whatever you're seeing on the outside, you're recognizing it on the inside, or you wouldn't have a feeling for it. So if you can heal it on the inside, and then you heal the world on the outside, and then you don't feel the pain because you realize that everybody is where they're meant to be in any case. But a lot of people don't even know that. They don't know that they have that ability to heal themselves. Is there something that came when you had the accident, that came to you that said, this is what I need to do going forward? Or was it just more like a spiritual awakening of note that just showed you stuff and said, whoa? Because there's a reason you survived.
Honestly, it was, and it still feels like that. It feels like a gigantic chaos, a giant chaos a
Uh-huh.
chaos that is just. I had my experience with the seeing things as they are, as far as the corruption and just wrongdoing, and people, like you said, it's like a narcissism thing.
Yeah.
Out for their own, out for their own, all about dollars and cents and prideful uh, ego. Um,
Power and control.
yeah, exactly. And what are you going to do about it? I've actually been told that verbatim by a person that was in a position that they were doing a lot of wrong, and basically I was told, what are you going to do about it, and to stop looking into things because it was affecting my mental health. And this was by a, oddly enough, it was a Secret Service agent here in the area, and it was regards to a lot of some bad things done with identity theft that I have documentation on. And she took documents from me and made copies of them, but told me verbatim, I was told, stop looking into it. It was affecting my mental health. And she was still surprised that people did not know how money or politics worked. She was still surprised when she would find out, people didn't know how those things worked. And I just felt
Oh,
like saying by fraud and money laundering. And I didn't, though, because I'm sitting in a room with two Secret Service agents in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm like, I don't know why all this. Like I said, there's just a lot that's happened
yeah.
from the time I woke up. There was a knee surgery I mean, it's just been back to back to back. Just corrupt, bad things, bad people. This man severed my ACL with no consent, written or verbal. It was supposed to be a knee scope. It was after I woke up. And he said it was hanging by a shred, so I snipped it. That's what the surgeon said to me. So I walked around for 3 years with no ACL in my leg.
Yeah.
And it was just things back to back. And then it wasn't just happening to me, it was happening to people around me, which got me most, especially that woman, elderly, disabled, sick, in an apartment. And this judge, there was a motion to vacate sent to her. There was no reason. You have to have a reason. She was
Yeah.
trying to get legal aid, which everyone has a right to, a legal right. She was denied her legal rights to get representation for this eviction that was wrongful in the first place. But he then sent a second notice, said motion to vacate for noise. I took it upon myself to kind of help. I went to the police department, got 8 months worth of police calls to that area, not one to her house. She's elderly. There was no
It's
police
not.
called to her home for noise. And
Okay.
then after that, when I sent those, I sent them, I was trying to help her as a advocate for her. And I sent it to the court. Then they sent another motion to vacate for non-payment of rent. I had every rent receipt the woman had for 12 months on time.
Yeah, of course. I
And
mean, they're just going to make it. They'll just keep going.
I would think there's more good. And maybe it's just what I've focused on since all of that happening, and figuring out why I have some serious setbacks that I've had in my life. Maybe
Yeah,
that I'm not seeing the good, because I know in my heart that there's good people out there still.
absolutely they are. And aren't you one of them?
But sometimes
Aren't you one of them?
I don't, I honestly, I feel like I have a really pure heart. And
Exactly.
I don't, and I try to be genuine. And like my sister, she's kind of a mean lady. And she told me at one point, "What's doing the right thing ever done for you, bitch?" And like that's
It's not
verbatim
about
what my
that.
sister said to me.
You know what?
But
That's her problem. But it's not about that. To me, it's like it's not about being a better person. It's just about being authentic and being true to yourself, that you can live with yourself because everything you do is karma.
yeah, and, well, then I think about that. Like, if affecting things around me that, I mean, it's definitely not, it's malicious. It's dark, it's dank, it is overpowering. But then sometimes I feel like maybe things of that nature that are that oppressive do try to oppress or divert people that do have an inner light to give.
To
Do you ever
ascend.
hurt real bad? Do you ever hurt so bad for others that it just like hurts?
I used to. I used to. But I realized that it wasn't doing me any good and it wasn't doing them any good. Because it's like this, all right? If you go into a church, they've got a cross with Jesus hanging on the cross, and there's blood everywhere. That is not what his life was about. His life was about healing. His life was about showing people a way, the way, not to be listening to what he says, but do what he does. And now what people do is remember the pain, the beatings, the torture, how he got nailed to the cross. That's all they remember. That was one day of his life, and his entire life's been disregarded. So it's about holding people in that pain point instead of holding them in the what he came, the living God that's inside of you. Because people that are hurting are only hurting because they don't realize the power they have. And every time you send them a thought of, I can see you in pain, you're putting them back in the pain. Does that make sense? And so by
Yeah,
putting them in the pain, you're making them get more, and you're taking it on. And the thing is, by taking on their pain, you can't fix it anyway. So you're weakening yourself and you're weakening them. And in a way, to me, I see it as a form of arrogance, not from a bad place, but it's saying you're not capable of handling the pain, so I'll carry it for you. And
that
when you
makes
give
sense.
them, it does, right? And when you give them the pain back, you know what you're doing? You're allowing them to say, I am powerful. I can fix this. But by taking it away, you're taking away the ability to heal it for themselves. Not so? Because then they can't do it because
That
you've
makes a
taken
lot of
it.
sense.
So, and the thing is, if you look at somebody, like, even if somebody's ill, I say I don't see them as sick. I see them as in their best possible way that I could see them, which is healthy. Because that means that's the picture I'm sending them of what I'd like them to be. If I send them a picture of how much pain they're in, I'm just perpetuating it the whole time. I don't see us as people that are not powerful. I see us as powerful beyond measure. They are scared of us. They are so scared of us. And by putting you in that pain and getting into that feeling, it's lowering your energy and it's weakening you. For what? For what?
You're absolutely right. I feel like maybe to keep things the way, I mean, like I said before, it was a complete like a nonchalant existence.
Yeah.
I
Well, you were
I
in pain
had to,
yourself. You were in pain. You were drinking. You were in pain.
oh
Now, and
I
a
did a
lot of
lot.
it to me is it to suppress the pain because you don't want to feel it, because you feel so deeply that when you see others in pain and you can't do anything about it, you just say, well, let me just cut myself off emotionally, then I don't have to feel it. But the truth
Yeah,
is, by feeling it, you process it. And by processing it, it clears. It's like wading through muddy water, just taking one bucket at a time. Eventually, that swimming pool will be empty. But if you just keep filling up the pool with more mud and saying, I don't want to look there, it's never going to get emptied. But it does eventually get clear. It's just that there's like a filtering system that's totally clogged up. You're hurting. How are you going to fix anybody?
that's that's the biggest thing, you know. I guess I've been feeling that lately. Is I can't. I've had a lot of little
God.
messes, you know, from my inability to, like I said, see exactly what I needed to see for myself, of myself. I did
Yeah.
a lot of blaming. Um, you know, and things that are out of a child's control. When you have things that certain things that happen, it is out of your control that happened to you,
Yeah.
and you're gonna
Absolutely.
pick up some bad things maybe in your life, like self esteem. I have the worst self image and self esteem I tend to let people, like I normally have some pretty very good, like controlling or not very good relationships based on something, and I just figured all that out. And I still have a friend. She's a good friend of mine that stuck by me, but she had done a lot of not so nice things too. But she's healing herself. She's been through a lot. I'm good at trying to fix others and help people.
Yeah.
And then I let some bad people in my life, some really bad things happen to me based on what I thought was good for them. And I allowed them to keep doing to me, that turned into a situation that was absolutely deplorable actions and thing and just the element that I would be in, or
Yeah.
or permit myself to be in. Really, it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's not. It's confusing. Just like some of the things, the
Yeah.
people. I mean, they're right now actively. There's a person that I wanted to help. I believed there things that I was told, and again, my own inability to judge a situation for what it is. You can't help. Sometimes you can't help people,
You know what I
and
always
it
say?
turns so ugly and so bad that I mean, it got bad, and I still don't
Uh,
understand why this person would do the things that they've done. And I mean, and then I still want to figure it out so I can fix them, and that's bad for me to, because they've done damage, real damage, that I had to pay tangible money for an attorney to make it known that this is not what happened. Here's eyewitnesses and all these things. But this person had such a problem, depth problem, that I mean, I still want to understand why they would do that, because I showed them so much loving and caring. Does that mean? And
yeah.
it's almost, it sounds sick for
Yeah.
me.
We
It
don't
sounds like a
understand
sickness
it.
I have.
No, we don't understand it because we think everybody thinks like we do. We don't like confrontation. We want to be nice. We want to be helpful. But sometimes when people are nice, you've got to have boundaries. And it's not about confrontation, it's about being affirmative. It's about being not even, it's not conflict, it's standing your ground and stating what you will and will not tolerate. And we have to do that because otherwise we will get bulldozed and you're no use to anybody dead or locked away or in debt. You're no use to anyone. So it's like when the plane starts crashing, you have to take the oxygen mask first. You cannot first give it to somebody else because otherwise you're going to die and you can't help anybody. And this is the lesson that I see we all have to learn. That's the way I see it. And there are people that don't have good intentions. And I mean, look at kids, right? If you allow them just to have a temper tantrum in the store, they become brats. They need
Hmm.
boundaries. They beat each other up in school. They bite each other and kick each other and spit on each other. They need to be told this is not okay. They need boundaries. It's healthy. It makes them happy. It makes them feel safe. People need boundaries. I don't get spoken to like that. Those are not my friends. Those are not the people that I associate with, you know. And sometimes you go over and above, and then I think to myself, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to put myself out for somebody who doesn't appreciate it, for somebody who doesn't respect me and see the work that I put in. It's got to be both ways. And I don't mind giving more as long as I can see that you perceive that there's some value. Otherwise, I'm putting my energy into something that's going to drain me dry and leave me a shell of who I am. So, they always
Wow,
say
that was
all
pretty
paths lead
profound.
to Rome. All paths lead to Rome, right? All paths lead to God. But you know what they don't say? The door to God is this way. The door is inside. It's not out there.
And that's something, because with all this chaos, it was all kind of burned back down to the way I view me, which isn't very good.
Totally, right? And so you want to do good,
Uh,
but you don't even like yourself. You might like yourself a little
yeah,
bit,
like,
but where's the love?
and I always get the excuses. There's lots of excuses, or
Yeah,
reasons, and
oh, let me fix everyone else.
yeah, I definitely would. That was my jam until
How about let me love everyone else?
not no. I don't even feel worthy of being loved sometimes because of how it was when and there it is, and more excuses. It's just I don't feel worthy of love.
Do you feel worthy of existing?
I just don't feel like this is the right place for me with how it is now. I don't feel like I belong. Like I don't belong here because it's not nice. What I see is not nice, and I was born into that. I just anything nice, nothing nurturing.
So if you had a message for people, what would that be?
Fight. If you feel that you are compelled for something bigger, and you feel that there's things going on that other people aren't seeing that you can clearly see, if you have to fight and fight yourself to get where you need to be, because it's a lot of negative and wrong thinking that you have on yourself. That I am in a war against myself sometimes to try to do that and break through and help others see things as they are, not what they're told to see. Because, like you said, it's so blatant right now and overtly in faces that these things are being done, and it's like, oh well, what are you going to do about it? There's power in number of the
You
people,
know,
and hearts, and genuine hearts,
absolutely.
and good people. But it's nice to know that there's people out there that know that, and it's being suppressed. That special light in us is being suppressed by people that don't want us to know how special we are, because then we'll all know that we are worth so much more, and abundance doesn't just mean earthly things.
All right. So, Leah, thank you so much for sharing. And thanks for sharing your story.
Of course.
Let me know how it goes.
I will, Natasha. And you know what? Stay blessed and keep doing what you're doing. It's a good thing. You've
Yeah.
made a difference and impacted my life here in Ohio, and I think it's going to help me keep building to make myself even able to reroute as a human being on this planet. To whereas most of the time I have people blowing me down, and you've helped me out a lot today. It was kind of serendipitous the way it happened. So thank you.
Nothing's an accident. You're welcome.
Bye. It was
Enjoy
good
your
to
day.
meet you. You too.
Likewise. Cheers.